So I currently have here with me two Cohort 1 fellows, Brandon from the UK and Praneetha from India. And recently Brandon came over to Berlin and we were catching up, Brandon, weren't we? And we were talking about how special our first cohort was and how valuable feedback was.
He's right here.
Yes, that's also the Global Summit. I love it. That was everyone who made it to the Global Summit in Brandon's background there. And I think that's actually a really nice segue into, one of the reasons that we're talking today, because Brandon, you mentioned that particularly you and Praneetha were giving each other a lot of feedback, in preparation for that.
Literally like every day on the lead up to the Global Summit, because obviously with the pictures and the presentations and stuff, it's quite high pressure and you kind of need someone to bounce ideas off. And I was saying at the summit and, with a couple of our close friends and now some of the newer fellows who have started, one of the most valuable assets that comes from being a part of this community is the people themselves. We're all going on the same journey together. We're all dealing with the same stresses in our own sort of way. So sometimes it's just great to bounce the ideas off people, get different feedback. Sometimes it's going to be helpful, sometimes it might not, but it helps you see the kind of problems and the vision of your own business through different perspectives. That's just, you just don't get that anywhere else.
How did this all come about? Because I sensed that there was a lot of proactivity between amongst you all.
I mean, obviously, I'm a people person. I've been staying in contact with a lot of people since the regional summit, and me and Praneetha especially, we get on really well in general. So we kind of just been chatting in general, especially when it comes to the pictures and stuff like that, the catalyst grants and the various presentations that we had to create. Since I've got quite a strong and prolific background in advertising and pitching, it kind of felt natural to ask if other people needed help. And then, I spent a lot of time with Praneetha, I spent some time with Abhijit and a lot of the other Pioneer Grant winners. And I don't know, it was just kind of conversational at first, me and Praneetha, we get on quite well on a personal level. I've had some issues in my personal life and challenges that I had to face. And she's always had my back in that respect. We always kind of look out for each other in that way. And that's something that, you don't really get very often. People who are like-minded, focusing on the same goals, the same cause. I mean, as incredible as all of the content, as all of the networks, the connections that you build here, it's all fundamental. But having someone who's in your shoes, maybe in a different perspective, but still going through the same journey as you, you can't put a price on that.
Actually, I think it was much before the grants were ever in the picture. We've always I don't know, it started from he needed somebody to create his logo and I texted him one of my cousin's numbers or something like that. But I think what really sort of kickstarted it, not just for me and Brandon, but for all of us, was the peer feedback, the peer support group that we have. Sort of became that open space, where people could say, you know what, I'm going through this and I don't know what to do. And I remember I was one of the first ones to initiate that I'm having a problem and I don't know what to do. Can someone please get on a call with me? And Brandon was the first guy. Swati was on there as well. And they have heard me rant because I was so upset. And we have not met each other personally, but the fact that they were still there, it kind of grew from there. And I really don't know when me and Brandon got close, but we were friends before the Global Summit. But I think, so I don't trust people very easily because of whatever experiences I've had. But I think the first day, we've been friends before the Global Summit, but the first day I meet him, there was an inherent sense of trust with him. I just trust him. He doesn't need to explain anything to me. He doesn't need to say anything. I just know I would trust this guy with my life. So presentations are a small part of it. And when you have that trust with someone, when you have that connection with someone, and I give a lot of credit of that to Brandon because, I do care about people, but he's somebody who really makes people open up. He makes people speak and talk, and he's always there. He's the loudest person. He loves everybody very loudly and very proudly. And I think that makes people feel safe.
Amazing. And you were able to, it's just, coming from, I don't know, for people, those coming from backgrounds who they're going into the office or whatever, school or whatever it is, and everything is face to face. Like the fact that you were able to develop these sort of bonds digitally first, and then you met each other like officially at the Global Summit. Were you expecting this going into the fellowship?
I don't know.
Really.
Yeah, no chance. When I've been on quite a few accelerator programs, and even the ones that are kind of like cohort based, it's not quite the same. It's like more everyone's just learning the same material, applying it to their businesses, and kind of sharing how it's affected their businesses with each other. It's not quite as personal as the beVisioneers has been for me. Like, I think the real thing that really set off the kind of intensity of the personal connection was really the regional summit for me. And obviously the regional summit happens pretty much right at the start of the program. You know, you have your onboarding like module or unit, and then you're thrown into the deep end, really. And like, I remember at the European Global Summit, you know, we met Mercedes-Benz team on like the first or second day. Like I think we met over like 50 to 60 different people within the first 48 hours of being like accepted and brought in. Mm-hmm. And what I really found just so humbling really was just the passion behind everybody's project, because we've all got that same collective vision. Even though we're working on our own projects, you know, it can be, I'm developing an app. Praneetha is currently creating, you know, like monkey safe bins to stop bonnet macaques from, you know, eating human food instead of actually foraging for themselves. Like there's, you know, completely different projects on different spectrums, but collectively we're all focusing on the same kind of utopian future that we're all trying to build. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you kind of have that uniting factor that brings everyone together. And when you're tackling something of this magnitude, you know, like it's genuinely the most important project, or like, you know, purpose. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, that's a part of this generation. Like, tackling something like that is such a massive weight on your shoulders. Especially on myself, I'm a solo founder, you know, like there are times where I'm just there like I don't know if I can do this. And like circling back to the peer support group that Praneetha mentioned. And the best thing was, it wasn't just the European hub or the Indian hub or the South African hub. It was collective. So even though I'd never met these people from around the world, because of the energy that I felt at the regional summit and the energy that we all felt, you know, all around across the world, we had that uniting factor. And then when people start to pop up in the peer support group, like, I'm quite an empathetic person. So the second I see someone in need, if I've got the time and, you know, the bandwidth to help out, I'm going to dive straight in.
I think it's also that I've said this at the Global Summit as well. I didn't think that we could go from screens to being lifelong friends with a lot of people, because there are cultural differences. And I experienced this when I was in the UK as well. But it was also a lot to do with the beVisioneers staff as well. And I've always said this, because at the regional summit, it was just 3 days, right? When I met the Indian fellows, it was insane how close we became so soon. There was never any friction. It always felt like we just knew each other. And the regional summit was actually the first place where I felt, why don't I start my own nonprofit? Why don't I have my own organization? Like, what am I doing? I've been working for so long. And I think that inspiration, to have so much inspiration in a room, that is insane. And I think the thing is, we are all born into a system where we're pitted against each other. Everything is a competition. You have to trample each other. And maybe that gives a divide and rule, conquer, control kind of thing, where you can control minds and mindsets and social narratives. But the thing is, to see so many of us who don't want to be that system anymore, I think that is what matters. When Marisha, she's the head, right? And we had so much respect and admiration. Obviously, we have so much love for her. But to see her come up on the last day and truly show her emotions and cry and tell us that she loves us, for Indians especially, that's huge, because we have a very different hierarchy of power and how seniors and juniors and different power systems work. So I think Eva, Marisha, you, everybody, Nihal, you've all set that path. And we all your values extend to us. It goes in how you select your people as well, because you want people who represent your values of community. And to come back, circling back to that, when you decide you don't want to remain in that system anymore, right? You don't want to be another person who's coming out of a machine that is being churned out by a university or a company, and you find people that you can really trust and feel safe and comfortable, and you have so much love that competition doesn't come anywhere. It's natural if you're feeling insecure. It's natural if you're feeling scared and you also want to get ahead. But having people with you who can walk with you on that journey, you're not that machine product anymore. You're somebody who takes apart that machine and you build better communities. And you do that not just for yourself, but because you want a better world for the people that you love.
I'm so glad you mentioned the competition versus collaboration. It was something that I wanted to get into. And I think what's been really interesting for us as a beVisioneers team, even though we have like grown exponentially, times 5 in the past, for our second cohort, somehow that closeness, we've just come back from the regional summits, and it's still, it really still feel like it's still felt, even though there's way more fellows, and we weren't sure if people were still going to have that collaborative mindset. And so we're glad that, a lot of people are embracing that. I wanted to ask, did, going in to beVisioneers, did you feel like it was going to be competitive, or, what were your expectations in that respect? Because I'm sure maybe it's different culturally for both of you.
There's so much opportunity for us to integrate our projects. I mean, whichever project you pick, I'm pretty sure you can find 10 different fellows who can collaborate in different ways to make that a reality. For example, me and Max were talking about collaborating. Me and Aprupa were talking about collaborating. At some point, I'm sure Brandon and I are going to collaborate. So it's really about just finding the path, because if you have the same goal, it doesn't matter which paths you're taking, they're all going to intersect at some point.
No, it's interesting you say that, because like collaboration is one of the most important things about it, 100%. But I do feel like from a competition standpoint, there is only a certain amount of people who can go to the global summit each year. Really, there is going to be that, kind of competitive undertones. People want to naturally, being competitive is part of human nature. We all want to be the best version of ourselves. We all want to achieve. And sometimes that does mean that other people can't. But I think the way in which we go about being competitive is different. And it very much leans into the collaboration side, because it's not just, oh yeah, I've progressed further with my project than you have. I'm doing X, Y, Z and you haven't got this. Do you know what I mean? That's when things get competitive and almost denigrative. Like they drag people down. That's not what this is about. One of the things, thankfully, I'm blessed to be one of the beVisioneers guides and helping onboard some of the second year fellows. And one of the most important things that I'm trying to instill into them is showcasing that you don't have to succeed on your own. We've all got skill sets. If we help each other grow, you'll grow 10 times faster than you will on your own. I was working a full-time job, 9 to 5 in London, traveling 2 hours there and back every single day. On the weekends, I was working bar shifts. So my sleeping pattern was just completely flipped nonstop. I was trying to build my project and progress with that during weekdays, because I couldn't do it on the weekends. And on the weekdays when I was traveling to London, it was just all so much on top of other, relationship pressures and all sorts of stuff like that. It's really easy to get swept up in the tides of life. And I feel like the Personal Sustainability Lab gave me some real practical tools and just help reiterate the connections that make everything, easier to bear. But the thing that the Personal Sustainability Lab and the fellows we give each other is it's a safe space to vent, to be heard, to be listened to and supported. And that's not something that I've had on any of the other accelerator programs that I've been on. It's something that you can't put a monetary value to, and that's that kind of support is exactly what makes the beVisioneers so unique.
And it's hard to forgive ourselves for resting. It takes a lot of work to go inside, figure out why we're doing what we're doing. They really make you sit and breathe together. And you do it because you are together. it's about an entire ecosystem. So I have a very strained family relationship. It's very heartbreaking and a lot for me to deal with at times. It gets really overwhelming and I break down on a constant basis. Brandon knows this. He's been on a call with me multiple times when I've been super anxious, and he's always been there. So I reached out to Joyce and I said, Joyce, I don't know because I don't want you. I said, I'm reaching out to you because I don't want you to feel like, I'm taking the fellowship for granted, or, I'm not taking it seriously enough, but this is what's happening in my life. And it's a lot. And I'm just feeling it. I don't know if, I need a break or I should continue. And she was so graceful. And I don't think I felt that safe with an authority figure ever in my life, whether it was in my personal life or academic life or professional life. And Joyce was it was through text. It wasn't even a video call. It wasn't a meeting. And the understanding and the safety that she provided, I could just breathe. Because I think what you guys do is you're not just giving us theoretical material. You're like, you know what, read this. And if you completed this percentage, then you get to the global summit. It's not that. You're there, you're available, and you're present. It's not just, it's our job we have to do. It's not that. We do really see that you guys care about us so much, and that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, I would also just to add one thing as well. The whole support and the sustainability thing is always important when you're on the low, but it's so important to be there for your friends and fellows when they win. Like very recently, this absolute angel right here on my shoulder, Marta, I got to go visit her in Berlin because she was launching and testing her new rock climbing holds, Like not many people would just go, do you know what? I'm booking a flight to Berlin. But she hosted me. I flew out there. I spent a lovely week out in Berlin where I got to see you and the team again. And it's connections like this, that you just don't, you rarely get. Like just today, even I saw Ntobeko. She's won a massive award in South Africa, so I had to post that on the story. That's so proud of her.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be a bunch of us in politics. And this guy's going to be there. I'm probably going to be here. And imagine we're all just good friends. We want the best things. Imagine how beautifully our world can function because we have developed the support system as we were growing up.
Brandon, as you mentioned, like you're working on an like app for behavioral change. Praneetha, you're working in like wildlife, both completely different projects, but yet you still find so much value from each other.
I have verbal diarrhea. I have a lot to say. And, as Brandon always mentions, he's great. I mean, I would tease him for not being modest, but he is so great. I can't even blame him with his advertising skills and his marketing skills. He really, so apart from all the technical stuff, I think when we do say feedback, it's about, I'm not presenting to a group of conservationists. I'm not presenting to people. I tend to say bonnet macaques very often, where people just know monkeys. So having Brandon to just, how does it sound from a layman's perspective? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make sense to you? Or do you think this will be effective? And he learned that they're called bonnet macaques. So I'm very proud of that. But it was also the feedback of, very honestly speaking, there were times in both of our journeys where we didn't want to apply for the grant. At different times, thankfully, not at the same time. And he called me and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do it. And I went and slept in my blanket because I was just feeling super low. He picked up his phone and he calls me and he's like, get up, get your ass up and finish it. And he sat with me until I did it. Yeah. And I remember for the second cycle, he was like, you know what, I don't want to do it. And it was the same thing. Like, get up. Just, it doesn't matter if we don't get it. Just put it in.
And I was kind of juggling if I even really deserved it. Like at the time with the physical, like, my personal relationships and whatnot, I was going for a really tough time. I had some health scares and it was just the stress and pressure because I had 3 pitches that week. I had the Global Summit, a just transition incubator pitch for a potential $3,000 win. And then I had an investor pitch as well. And that was, without a shadow of a doubt, the most stressful week I've had in my life to date. And it got to the point where I was like, especially with the things that had happened with my personal life, I was like, I mean, the business deserves it, but do I really deserve to be this person right now? And I wasn't sure if I did. So I was just content with just letting this opportunity slip. And I was talking to Praneetha about it, 'cause, you know, I wasn't in a very good place. And she took the time to just like remind me who the hell I am. Like, just because you do it, you know, you make a mistake or something doesn't go the way you want it to. And I will always remember that, Praneetha. Always. So thank you.
It'll make me cry. Feedback is not just you telling someone how to do something better. It's about how can you make your approach to changing the fucking world better. You're changing the fucking world and you're not alone through it. I may not understand completely what you're doing. But I will try to fill in the source of your strength as much as I can with my energy and my love.
Oh my goodness, guys. I was not prepared for this many emotions.
Yeah, as either.
I really, wow. Before I kind of wrap this up, I love, Brandon, what you said about the advertising there, because I can relate. But I do love that you give that feedback to Praneetha about like, okay, not everyone knows the species of monkeys, like little things like that. I love that, and how Praneetha was really there to pull you out of like a dark place you were going through, and how you were just there for different ways for each other, and obviously such a huge like support system for each other. And it sounds like many fellows experience the same.
Yeah, it takes a village. It's back to my little tagline for the app. One person can't change the world, but a community can. Honestly, the community that you guys have created, both of fellows and of staff members, is something that I consider invaluable. Like I feel blessed to be a part of this community. And that's why I try so hard to engage with and work with other people to help them bring their dreams into reality. And, you know,
always say connection, compassion, community. Like those three things. It's the tagline of my nonprofit. But,
get in there.
But I think those three things are really, really important. Yeah, and they go deeper than anything else that we can do as human beings.
Because you both are clearly very passionate about this belief of community and this belief of connection and collaboration. Like, how, I guess my question is, how has beVisioneers, if not instilled that in you, how has it grown and developed and shaped that perspective?
I'm gonna go quite deep on this one, because especially when I was younger, like I've always been like quite like individual, I guess, like that. Where I'm from in Portsmouth, like I've moved around quite a lot when I was younger, and I got bullied like really badly, like 100%. Off. I don't really talk about this much, but yeah, I only really had my family and 2 to 3, maybe 4 close friends, and I developed a lot of mental resilience and strength because, you know, I learned to pretty much not believe in what people thought about me. It was more about my vision of myself, which was more important. But yeah, after I went to college, it started to get a little bit wider, and university is really when I started to come into my own, and I was a lot more social. I had a much wider group of friends. But when I joined the beVisioneers, like it was the first real time where I was a part of a community that was so big. Like, you know, to become a part of an international accelerator program is an achievement that very few people get. Like, we were we were some of the first 100 people selected around the globe, and that's incredible. But to finally, I don't know, like meet your tribe, so to speak, like we're a part of that. Like I spoke earlier about how we all have the same vision, and despite the fact that we're all working on different facets and aspects of it, we're all united with that same purpose. I wouldn't have reached this height if it weren't for the positivity and energy that I get from every single person, just because you're all so inspiring. The projects that everyone's working on, the love, support, and energy that we all give each other. We lift each other up. And that is what makes, that's what beVision is.
Yeah, actually. So the community that you're speaking of, I've always craved for it. I have yearned for it. So growing up, I lost my dad quite early. We were super close, and after I lost him, it wasn't great in the house. Mom was very emotionally distant and unavailable. I had abusive relatives. I didn't have my own set of friends. Like Brandon, I was bullied for how I looked, for being very passionate about a lot of things. I was constantly misunderstood. It's difficult. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of self-worth issues. And I think the only thing, if I'm not a dry skeleton of myself today, I think it's because of the purpose that I had. It's because the love I've had for this planet, and vice versa, because I always say the planet and the universe, for some reason, it's kept me protected. And sometimes I think, and this line is actually from one of my favorite series. There's a character, he says, I don't think anybody up there would want you to go through so much and end your life without having known what love truly means. And it can be any kind of love. And I think that's what beVisioneers has brought for me. For the first time, I have found a community of people who get what I'm saying, where I don't have to be afraid of being misunderstood or misrepresented, or I don't have to hide. And you learn from what you don't have. You want to give people what you never had. And I think I'm also getting that back with the community. So, yeah.
You're going to make me cry in a second.
I've already cried. So
it's a good thing my camera isn't so good at my laptop, because there are just little streams of tears slowly creeping their way down my face right now. Guys, we are so lucky to have both of you.